Trump and his tax bill will cost 800 to 900,000 jobs. It will also drive up pollution emissions and some other things. Here it is.
One answering present. The bill is passed.
Put them up full mass. They're cheering. So while many Americans were still asleep, Republicans in the House of Representatives passed Trump's huge, horrible mega bill. Keep that picture up. I watched as much as I could. The most compelling point was, what are you afraid of? Why are we holding this at 1 a.m.? This was intentional. So the bill is going to be absolutely devastating to the everyday person, okay? So let me give you the facts. The bill will add $3.8 trillion to the national debt. That means that my child, her children, and their children's children, they will be paying for this bill. It extends the tax breaks, however, for billionaires. Yeah, they're fine. As a matter of fact, they're better than good. They're better than they were under Trump 1. They're really good under Trump 2 now. It cuts Medicaid. It cuts Medicaid to the tune of 8.6 million losing coverage. 8.6 million losing coverage. It slashes food aid, 3 million Americans. The bill titled, quote, One Big, Beautiful Bill Act. One guess on who made up that name. Adopting Trump's slogan for the measure extends the tax cuts enacted by the president during his first term in 2017, boosts funding for border deportation, national defense priorities, and imposes reforms like beefed up work requirements on Medicaid that are projected to result in millions of low-income individuals losing health insurance. 8.6 million is your estimate. Rolls back green energy tax incentives and, among many other provisions, increases the debt limit by $4 trillion. Increases the debt limit by $4 trillion. Why are they increasing the debt limit by $4 trillion? So they don't have to worry about the press saying, oh my goodness, they are over the debt limit. We have to engage in a shutdown. So they increase the debt limit. You eliminate the headline. Trump's bill, highly regressive, obviously, favors the wealthy. It decides to hurt the middle class significantly, explodes the deficit in a way that, well, would make the most liberal spender in the history of America say, what the hell are you doing? But all it took was one individual to show how Republicans and all of their fiscal responsibility jargon was nothing but a power grab. You see, now that power is there, their true ideology is exposed. They were never Republicans. They were never conservatives. They were never constitutionalists. I would argue that their Christian category is miscategorized. They were simply of the politics of power. And now that they have power, their true ideology is exposed. Now, the poorest fifth of Americans, the poorest, would receive 1% of the bill's net tax cuts in 2026, while the richest fifth of Americans would receive 2/3 the tax cuts. The richest 5% alone would receive a little less than half of the net tax cuts that year. The richest 1% of Americans would receive an average net tax cut of $79 many, many times more than the average tax cut received by other income groups. The bill would provide larger tax cuts as a share of income to high income taxpayers than to either middle class or working class families. 2.7% of income for the richest 1% compared to 2.4% for the fifth of Americans and 0.9% for the poorest fifth Americans. That's according to the Institute on Taxation and Economy Policy. Let's put up the graphic, make it plain. The share of tax cuts from House Reconciliation Bill, this was back in 2026, will give the 20% richest Americans a 67% tax cut. Now you're looking at that bar gram there. That's quite compelling. It's compelling visual, right? Okay. It gives you an idea of who they prioritize. Now, you can clearly see who is among the favored in this policy dynamic. The impacts of the bill go beyond taxes, however. Americans are now going to be, more hungry. Food stamps face biggest cut in the program's history under the bill. Under the GOP package, more food stamp recipients would have to work to qualify for benefits. Currently, adults aged 18 to 54 without dependent children can only receive food stamps for 3 months over a 36-month period, unless they work 20 hours a week or are eligible for an exemption. Now, remember, they have to work 20 hours a week. That's considered part-time pay in the United States of America, but they have basically eliminated all of the part-time positions in the federal government, which, by the way, was the #1 employer of Black people in the United States of America. They're all gone. The rest that are there are likely to be eradicated too. Medicaid is also being butchered. For the first time in Medicaid's 60-year history, certain recipients ages 19 to 64 would be required to work at least 80 hours a month to retain their benefits. They could also meet the mandate by engaging in community service, attending school, or participating in a work program. Now, some who still rock with Trump, you may argue, well, that's doable. Well, talk to a poor 62-year-old elderly woman in deep South Georgia. Well, how about those in rural Texas? They don't have public transportation. There's not a school within many, many miles. They do not have a personal vehicle, nor can they drive. What are they going to do? Well, according to the bill, they will be able to eat for 3 months, and for the other 33 months left, they will die. Put up the map. One in 5 Americans rely on Medicaid for health care. 1 in 5. Over 70 million are enrolled. The environment. Let's put it up. The proposed reconciliation bill will slash hundreds of thousands of domestic jobs. Environment. The environment will be harmed due to deregulation. The legislation will cost the United States 830,000 jobs by 2030, not 2050, not 2060, but within the next 4.5 years. Compared with the status quo, energy innovation found. That includes the direct loss of jobs in fields such as solar panel manufacturing and electric vehicle production. indirect job loss from decreased investments and lower clean energy demand, and induced cuts resulting from consumer spending cuts attributable to layoffs, higher fuel cost, and other third-order effects. Under the reconciliation bill, tax credits for cleaner cars will completely end this year. You will not be incentivized for giving a damn. With incentives for wind, solar, and even nuclear energy projects scaled down and then eliminated by the year 2032. Clean energy manufacturing tax credits will be eliminated by 2031. While Americans seeking to upgrade their homes to cleaner, more efficient appliances will get no further subsidy after this year. None. The new bill will also cause the U.S. to emit 260 tons more pollution than it would have otherwise done by 2035 or in 2035. These restrictions, well, no more, which is more than the entire annual emissions of Spain. Okay. So let's have a conversation. If you voted for Trump, and you believed that he would deliver the things that you believed in, and you and I don't have to believe in the same thing. We don't. I'm sure that there are things that Trump may have delivered for you or tried to deliver for you in Trump version 1. And I'm sure that I disagree with those things ideologically. But none of you who voted for Trump voted for this. None of you. If you voted for Trump, I did not hear you talk about we need out-of-control tariffs. When you voted for Trump, I did not hear you echo that somehow we needed to eliminate all regulatory dynamics as it relates to the environment. I heard you talk reform, yes, but not elimination. I never heard any of you say that your grandmother and grandfather, great aunts, great uncles, etc., should no longer be able to eat. I did not hear you make that argument. So now we have to collectively make the argument against the individual who has betrayed every single human being in this country. Jordan, thoughts here?
Yeah, this bill would have sweeping consequences for the most vulnerable among us. The attacks and cuts on our healthcare infrastructure would result in up to 14 million people losing their health insurance. As you lay out, the environmental consequences, the economic consequences, the ways that it would make utilities and monthly bills more expensive, the way it would make food more inaccessible for working families, the way it would make rent more expensive for working families. Across the board, this is almost like, by design, a systematic deconstruction of our entire government to and the props that we have in place to help keep people afloat. As insufficient as they may be, it seems by design to punish the most vulnerable. Never mind, the tax bill would, of course, and unsurprisingly, cut the tax burden for the ultra wealthy, 0.1% in our society, by hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And think about that. When you are that wealthy, what is hundreds of thousands of dollars more per year than just pocket change? So what is the justification here? And of course, they're going to pump 175 billion at least into Trump's Golden Dome, this wasteful project relying on purported technology that physicists say isn't even technologically capable or isn't even there technologically. We're just burning through billions of dollars so defense contractors can continue to get rich, so billionaires can continue to get rich. Meanwhile, the working poor in this country could lose their health insurance, be unable to pay rent, be unable to afford groceries, and be unable to pay their utility bills. Who is this for?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Jordan, you are a champion of environment. You are a champion of criminal justice reform. Your ideology is well known. Did you, and I'm asking you honestly, did you see this level of extremism? I mean, if you want to talk extremism, this is actual extremism. Did you see this level of extremism coming when you had conversations with people that may have been ideologically on the other side of you?
It's hard to say. I think there's going to be some level of regret, and I don't think it's going to be a lot, but I think there will be some once people start to feel the consequences. It's not going to be when the legislation is passed, people are not going to read a summary of what's in it and then be like, well, you know what, I was wrong. No, that's just, people will find a way to justify it until it affects them directly. And sadly, on issue after issue, that seems to be human behavior. They don't care if other people are suffering. Many people, not everyone, of course, and I know all of your audience is justifiably outraged here. But there are many people on the right who don't seem to care about these issues until it affects them directly. I don't know if it's that they can't comprehend existential threats or it's just out of indifference. I don't know. Yeah. I don't want to assign any sort of character label or reading onto strangers, but there seems to be a problem where people don't care. Marriage equality, perfect example. And you saw it with members of Congress, Republicans, electeds. They didn't care. It was immoral. It was against God's will. It's always been one man and one woman until somebody in their family came out. Right. And then they're like, you know what? Yeah, actually, we do need to think about this. And just like, what will it take for these people to start to care about strangers before it affects somebody in their own family? I don't know what it'll take to get there, but I think there'll be some introspection once people start to feel the consequences of this.
And you are right. You are right. For those who are on the other side of this and you subscribe to a particular faith, Christianity in particular, the reason why we don't have to learn every lesson through experience. If you remember what Joshua said to the disciples, told them, thank you for feeding me, for clothing me, etc. Disciples said, we never did any of that. You got somebody else. You got us mixed up with somebody. And he said, no. When you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. You forgot that part.